everyone. It's Dr. Heather Frederick here from the Happy Doc Student podcast. And when I interviewed davidji, it was almost as if time stood still. And before I knew it, 52 minutes had just flown by. The video you're about to watch is the entire unedited interview. If you're a regular listener to my podcast, you know I like to try to keep the episodes to about 20 minutes. So what I did was edit this into 2 episodes, number 12 and 13, and I also added some commentary throughout to draw some connections, specifically for doctoral students. So enjoy this video, and if you are a doctoral student, I encourage you to also check out the podcast, and the links are below this video. And one last thing. The audio was a little challenging here. I was able to work just a tiny bit of magic on the podcast, so if you're having difficulty with the audio, please check out the podcast. Boy, are you in for a treat, because today I welcome the man often referred to as the velvet voice of stillness. davidji is a globally recognized mind-body health and wellness expert, mindful performance trainer, meditation teacher, and author. As the most prolific creator of guided meditations in the world, his work has touched literally millions of people's lives, myself included. He has a passion for working with those in high pressure, high stress situations, and so what better person to come talk to us about the transformative nature of a daily meditation practice. davidji, I am truly humbled and honored to have you here with us today.
Oh, hello. Thank you so much for inviting me. I am so excited to be here and to share some of these tools and tips and techniques to help all of us connect to that stillness and silence that rests within, so we can make better decisions in our lives.
So davidji, when I was in graduate school, I did not meditate. And if someone had suggested that I do such a thing, I am fairly confident I would have said not only that I did not have the time, but that I thought it was a waste of time. So my audience is full of analytical thinkers and research junkies. So why don't we just start with a little bit of the science behind a meditation practice?
Right. Well, first, let me share. Hello, everyone. Of course, it's a waste of time. Of course, you could be doing something more productive. We've been trained from the earliest of ages, especially if you're in a graduate program, you're a high achiever, probably a little bit of a control freak as well. And so if we've been taught always that the person who's not doing is the person who distinctly is not achieving, perhaps a loser, and the person who's going, doing, right to the brink of right to the brink of exhaustion and burnout is the champion. And I think that's, it's a little, it's not really nourishing thinking, and it's not true. And so I would love to share with you some of the science so we can sort of like own the fact that this tool that people have been practicing for literally for thousands of years can help you in a physical sense, in a mental sense, in an emotional sense, and if you care, in a spiritual sense. So let's dive into probably the landmark study. And I'll take these, what I do is I read white papers and research reports and like all this extensive stuff, and I try to distill it down into something that we could care about or that wouldn't make our eyes glaze over. So this was a 2012 study at the University of Massachusetts, Mass General, with Harvard Medical Center, sort of like contributing some cash. And once it started going on, it was so exciting that even Yale dove in to be a part of this landmark study. And it was the first study that demonstrated scientifically that meditation can change the physical structure of your brain, which before that, it was just a guess, and people were saying, sure, it's good for you. But this proved it. It wasn't a giant study. There were only 16 test subjects, but these 16 test subjects, amazingly, agreed to take MRIs of their brain before, during, and after. It was an 8-week study, 56 days. And they were instructed to meditate just once a day for 30 minutes, simply watching their breath. Now we know that, of course, we have 60,000 to 80,000 thoughts a day. So, of course, during that process and whenever we meditate, those thoughts are pouring in to the tune of about one every 1.2 seconds. They're coming. So meditation doesn't stop thoughts. What it allows us to do is really bring our attention to something else. And so the thoughts are coming in. It's sort of kind of like putting your phone on silent, not on vibrate, but on silent. The texts are still coming in, the messages and notifications are still coming in, but you're not even aware unless you're looking at the phone. And so this study, at the end of these 56 days, it was unanimous. All 16 test subjects demonstrated an increase in their gray matter of their hippocampus, the part of our brain responsible for learning, memory, spatial orientation, hand-eye coordination. All of them experienced at least a 5% increase in the gray matter of the hippocampus. They also, all of them, experienced a shrinkage of more than 5% in their amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for stress, anger, anxiety, fear. And so that was it. That was 2012. Once we knew that, like, oh, I guess meditating can actually change the physical structure of the brain, money started pouring into other academic institutions and medical centers for research on meditation. Probably one of the key proponents of this is Dr. Sarah Lazar. She's got one foot in Harvard Medical School and one foot in University of Massachusetts and Mass General. So she's actually coordinating all these different research. On the West Coast, University of San Francisco, massive research on meditation. University UC Berkeley actually has a gratitude school, and there's a science of gratitude as well. And I think it's called the Greater Good School. And they're actually proving that even having a daily gratitude practice can impact our neural pathways. So that was the first study. Oh, and of course, Dr. Richard J. Davidson at the University of Wisconsin in Madison has done extensive work on consciousness and the brain. So let me share a very, very cool, if not eerie, study that he did. It was a study that was done in Chicago. It was an 8-year study. There were 25,000 people, so not 16, but 25,000 people who participated. And this was a stress study. And they asked these people just 2 questions. One, do you have a lot of stress or a little stress? And 2, do you think it's harmful to you or do you think it's not harmful to you? And this study changed stress and our perception of stress totally, because it suddenly revealed that stress is in the eye of the beholder. So here's how they tracked the results of this study. They just used death records. They never met these people ever again. They asked them these 2 questions. They looked at their results, and then they tracked their lives over 8 years. And the people who said, I have a lot of stress, and oh, by the way, it's very, very harmful, they had a 43% higher mortality rate than the rest of the group. The group that said, yeah, I have a lot of stress, but it's not going to kill me, they had the lowest mortality rate. So we suddenly proved that, we're all having stress, and yet what you do with it, and what's the definition of stress? My definition is how you respond when your needs are not met. It's just that simple. How you respond when your needs are not met, actually, and that happens how many times a day do we think that happens? Maybe 20 times a day. Our needs are not met. And so what you do with that becomes the fabric of your. And so we're all experiencing our needs not being met in so many different areas, especially with this global pandemic occurring. Plus your studies, oh, by the way, your relationships, oh, by the way, the social context that's happening in our world, the racial inequity that we're really being exposed to at a much higher level. So we're becoming more aware of that. Oh, by the way, politics. We can go on with a list of ways that our needs are not met. But I like to distill this down to four basic needs. I call them the needs of the heart. And when the needs of the heart are not met, and they're not met on a consistent basis, we're experiencing that same type of result. So Abraham Maslow from 1942 to 1949 did massive research on needs, all the needs that we have, and the hierarchy of needs. So let me just briefly walk through that so everyone can get some kind of context here. Maslow said that we all have certain levels of needs and that we are innately driven to fulfill those needs without necessarily a reward hanging out at the end of that. So that first level of needs are physiological. Everybody needs to eat, drink, pee, poop, sleep, breathe, and have warmth. Everybody needs that. And if that need is not being met, all your attention's on that. You're not thinking about any other need higher up. You know, if you're in a car and you're driving like 30 miles to the next rest stop, and someone puts on, turns on the radio and says, "Oh my God, this is my favorite song," and everybody in the car is dancing wildly to that song, but you have to pee, you're not engaging with that. You're thinking, 29 miles to the rest stop, 28 miles to the rest stop. You're not thinking, "Oh, I love that song. It makes me feel so good." Same thing, someone like whispers in your ear, "Oh, I love you." And even if you love them back, you're like, okay, can I get this done first? So we have this innate need to be working on that lower level of need. And above that are our needs of safety and security. And this, I think, is a really important thing because we're not really paying as much attention to how that has been deprived from us, certainly during the era of COVID, which isn't ending anytime soon, oh, by the way. That's going to be part of the fabric of our lives, at least for the next year, if not longer than that. Not to buzzkill, but it's not like magically, oh, we all have the vaccine and COVID went away. It's, even once we all have the vaccine, then they'll go, oh, there's actually another strain. It's mutated. It's this. So that next level up, well, you know what? Let me back up to give a framework for those who like to learn by getting the full picture. So the 5 levels of needs are physiological, biological, a little further up, safety and security, a little further up, love and belongingness, a little further up, esteem or social needs, and the top level, the 5th level, is self-actualization, which includes becoming your best version, really stepping into your full potential, our morality, our creativity, peak experiences, appreciation of art and music. But let's come back to the bottom again. So we need to meet our basic physiological, biological needs. And then right above that is safety and security. So we have to be meeting our needs of safety and security before we can even step into love and belongingness. So what would safety and security be? It's our health. It's stability in our life. It's the understanding that everybody's sort of kind of playing by the same rules that we are, that we all sort of kind of believe the same things, not politically or religiously. But if I'm walking down the street, I'd like to know that the person walking towards me on the street also has the same kind of understanding of law and order, that they're not going to suddenly punch me or yell at me or hit me or chase me or rob me. So we suddenly start to realize that that level of safety and security, if it's not being met, can't experience love. And so like roll that back to not feeling safe in a relationship. Roll that back to not feeling safe walking around planet Earth because there's a virus that could take you down. Think of all the ways in our lives that we're not really safe and secure, or that we feel there's too much uncertainty out there, and then we get frozen. But if we can just start, Maslow said, if we can just start working on these needs, we can move to the next level to appreciate that. And that's love and belongingness. That's That's friendship. That's camaraderie. That's connection, which we crave so desperately. And it contains three of the four needs of the heart that I'm talking about. The four needs of the heart are attention, affection, appreciation, and acceptance. We all need attention. We all need to be seen. It's a form of our validation. And of course, when we're not looked at, or when we're not, maybe there's not eye contact, or maybe someone doesn't sort of just like recognize us, right? We've all like walked down the street and said hi to somebody who blows us off as we're passing them, and we're like, what's that about? What did I say? But we need attention. We are all craving attention. And if you're a student, I don't care what level you are craving for that professor to acknowledge you, to like see you, just to like make sure that you're there. A little deeper than attention is affection. Everybody needs it. It's sort of like attention with a little bit of kindness. So we want to be seen and then have someone smile at us. We want to be seen and have someone pat us on the back. We want to be seen and have someone perhaps hug us. We want affection in our lives, from the most basic forms to the most intimate forms. The next level after attention and affection is appreciation. Everybody needs to be seen and acknowledged, recognized for their contribution. We all need it. We crave it. And then one step further is acceptance. We all want to feel like we belong to something. This could be your favorite musical group. This could be your religion. This could be your school. There's a certain pride you have for your bubble. Whatever that bubble is, you're like, yep, I'm one of them. You know, I voted for this person. I eat this kind of food. You know, if you would put a bumper sticker, you know, on the back of your car about something, that's something you want to be accepted to. And we crave it. So attention, affection, appreciation, and acceptance. Think about how often these needs are not being met. And when these needs are not being met, we experience stress. Now, we're familiar with the concept of fight flight. Fight flight is this self-preservation mechanism that's been woven into our DNA since beings first walked on the planet. So let's go back 10,000 years. You're walking through the jungle and you hear a twig snap, or you hear the hiss of a saber-toothed tiger or something like that. And here's how we're wired. It's our autonomic nervous system that's running the whole show. And in less than 5 seconds, it's going to kick us into this self-preservation mechanism where we will either fight the threat or run away from it. So the first thing that happens is you start perspiring. Anytime we sense a threat to the physiology, the first thing we do is start to perspire. And even if no one's ever, attacked you, or you sensed mortal danger, we've all been driving and someone cut us off. And in that moment, we were like, oh, and the first thing we do is perspire. Why do we do that? Because our autonomic nervous system says, hey, there's a threat to the physiology. You're going to either fight or run away from this thing. We need to start sweating because we know you're going to overheat in that process. And that's how we cool down by perspiring. The next thing you start to do is breathe more rapidly and more shallowly. That's to get the blood flowing. Blood flowing is a really core and critical aspect. And this teaches us how connected our breath is to our heart rate. So you start breathing more shallowly and more rapidly. The blood that's in your torso and your brain actually leaves there, moves to your legs and to your arms, to your extremities. So you can really, with a lot of blood flow, either run away or fight. And then this very, very cool thing happens. The autonomic nervous system says, what's essential here to save our life? It's definitely not your sex hormones. We don't need to be thinking about sexual reproduction right now. So let's shut down your entire reproductive system. Then it says, what else is going on here? Oh, cellular development, hard nails, lustrous hair, beautiful skin. Yeah, we don't need to be thinking about that either. Who needs to be thinking about cellular development right now? So let's shut down your growth hormone. And then your autonomic nervous system says, oh, that germ fighting thing known as your immune system? You could be dead in like 3 minutes. So we don't need to be fighting germs right now. Let's shut down your immune system. And now you're set. Your digestive system shuts down. Critical thinking shuts down. And your body puts all its attention on surging adrenaline, cortisol, and glucagon into your body. Glucagon is like eating 5 Snickers bars at once. It's something as insane as that. And now you're pretty much set up. You've shut down everything that's non-essential. You've surged all this amped up chemical and hormone into you. And oh, but wait, there's one more thing. Your autonomic nervous system figures out, you know what? You could get cut. Back in the day when you were running from a threat or fighting a threat, a mortal threat, you often got cut by the nails of a saber-toothed tiger or by, something in the woods while you were running away from it. So we actually begin to start clotting our blood. Platelets, the hard parts of the blood that flow through the plasma, become plump and sticky in advance of you being cut. All this in about 3.5 to 5 seconds. All this stuff in under 5 seconds. And now you're ready to either fight the threat or run away. Fast forward to this year, not a lot of saber-toothed tigers out there, and we're not experiencing mortal threats on a constant basis. But when we experience a threat or sense a threat, not to the physiology, but to our ego, our sense of self, our sense of self-worth, which is something we think we own, we respond the exact same way. What do we think we own? Pretty much everything, right? I own my diet. I own my physical exercise. I own my school that I go to. I own my path of study that I go to. I own my religion. I own my belief systems. You even think you own the lane that you're driving in, right? We think we own the 20 feet in front of us, the 20 feet behind us, and certainly our lane. And when someone sort of like drifts into our lane, they're invading our personal space. They're invading the thing that we think we own. You could say, oh, I love this performer or this musician, and then someone throws some shade on them, and you're like, really? We get defensive. So suddenly we start to realize anytime anything we think we own, your political beliefs, your social beliefs, your identity beliefs, we can go on and on and on, your nationalistic beliefs, whatever they are. Anytime they're threatened, we respond. It's called emotional fight flight, also referred to as the ego response, also referred to as the reactive response. So you figure 20 times a day when our needs are not being met, certainly attention, affection, appreciation, and acceptance, suddenly all that same chemical and hormonal aspect flows through us. So we are actually damaging ourselves every time we experience stress if we think it's going to harm us.
So David, davidji, you have given us so much to unpack here because, wow, where do I start? A threat is a threat is a threat, right? Whether it's a saber-toothed tiger or your paper coming back for the 100th revision.
Correct.
We are under a state of stress.
Right.
That does not serve us.
And responding chemically and hormonally the same way. Maybe not at that level of intensity where we're out of breath, but we could be, right? Someone hands you back your paper and they go, really? You thought that was going to pass? Suddenly you're like, everything that's going on, if you were in the most dire mortal threat, the exact same chemical and hormonal aspects are happening to you. How many times you think you can suppress your immune system before you get diagnosed with an immunodeficiency? How many times you think you can surge sugar into your body before you're diagnosed with a sugar issue? How many times you think you can make your platelets plump and sticky before you're diagnosed with some type of cardiac issue? So we suddenly realize, de-stressifying could be one of the most important and greatest essential things that we could ever put our attention on.
Absolutely. As you're talking, I'm thinking, wow, this could be maybe even a scary conversation that people are listening in on as they're realizing, as they're partaking in this program that's 5, 6, 7+ years constantly under a state of stress and going, oh no, what am I doing to myself? You came from a high stress life.
Yes, I did. Yeah. It's funny. I began my meditation journey when I was an undergraduate. Um, and it was an experimental Asian studies class where we learned Zen meditation, and there were 12 of us. We sat in a circle. Our Zen master stood in the corner, and we were instructed during the meditation, if we had a thought, to raise our hand. In his hand, he carried an 18-inch bamboo stick known as a keisaku, and he would come over and thwack us on the back every time we had a thought. So I only lasted in that school of meditation a couple of weeks, and I dabbled sometimes for years, sometimes for days or weeks, everything from candle gazing to mantra to tantra, to walking meditations, moving meditations, singing meditations, chocolate tasting meditations. But then I got more deeply involved in the corporate world, and I got involved in the world of finance and Wall Street and mergers and acquisitions. And like that, my meditation practice was gone. And what came to replace it? Lack of balance and an emptiness inside. And it wasn't until like a crisis moment, which I'm hoping no one here has to go through, learn from, go to school on my crisis moment, where suddenly I was like, that's it. I'm done. I'm fried. I'm empty. I'm empty inside. And then I went off on my own little eat, pray, love journey to try to reconnect with meditation and the practice. And I work with a lot of people who are in super, super high stress, high pressure jobs. And, we're all the same in this context. We're all experiencing these flickers of fight, flight in an emotional way throughout the course of the day. And here's an important thing. When those chemicals and hormones surge into you, ideally to preserve you, but of course, it's not preserving you if you just got, it's got a paper that's not resonating with your professor. In that moment, when all that stuff is coming into us, there's no off switch. It just comes in and then maybe dissipates. It can go as long as 18 hours. So we would say, if it exists in the body just for more than a few minutes here to spark you into a certain direction, then that's chronic stress. And so if you're like living like that day after day after day after day after day after month, it's going to take you down. We call these the seeds of illness that happen to us. It's going to take you down emotionally, and it's going to force you to make decisions out of fear or desperation. And that's the problem. We should make decisions, all of our choices, from a space of clarity and deeper understanding. And so the flip side of this is meditation. Meditation is the antidote to stress. The meditative state that we experience just by meditating a little bit here and there is known as the restful awareness or restful alertness biological state. And so it's like the opposite of fight flight. When we're in that state, we're not perspiring. Our threshold for perspiration actually gets raised up. We're not breathing shallowly and rapidly. We're breathing more deeply and more slowly. Our blood flow slows down. Our blood pressure lessens. Think about this. Our growth hormone, our sex hormone, our immune system all become elevated, and adrenaline, cortisol, and glucagon get suppressed. And instead of the hard parts of our blood getting plump and sticky, they become more fluid and flow through us more easily. So given a choice, how do you want to live your life? It's really that simple. You want to live your life from in that space with all that coming into us, or do you want to live as sort of like waiting for the next crisis to unfold and see how you'll respond to it. And meditation can really help you have fewer crises in your life. It's just that simple.
It really is that simple. And sometimes I think people shy away from things that are so simple. Can it really just be, David G, that if I start this meditation practice, right? So I'm sure you hear lots of excuses. I know when I talk to doctoral students and faculty about meditation, I hear things like, I think I would be terrible at it because my mind is always going and I don't see myself sitting there for 30 minutes. And who's got that kind of time? So, what do you suggest for someone who's listening in and they're thinking, oh my goodness, I need to give this a try? Where do I start?
Yeah. Well, the beauty is that we have our whole lives ahead of us and that we can cultivate a practice in the smallest space. And it's about consistency versus duration. So yes, for you to have qualified for that University of Massachusetts Mass General study, you would have had to meditate for 30 minutes a day. But we're not in that study. we're in our lives right now. So this technique that you and I have chatted about, I first started teaching this right up the road in Camp Pendleton, which is the largest Marine base in the United States. And I taught it to Marines who had returned from too many tours of duty in Iraq and Afghanistan. And they were sitting there the whole time that I was talking with their arms crossed, rolling their eyes. They didn't even know what to expect. But I didn't call it meditation. I called it tactical breathing. So that really made a big difference to them when I did that. And so this practice, I'll share it right now. So think about something that's been bothering you or disturbing you over the past couple of days. Don't go too deep. This is not therapy. But just, someone said they were going to do something, they didn't, something was supposed to happen, it didn't, you're sort of like a little pissed off or irritated or bothered or, it's just not sitting well, just a little disturbed inside of you. And now close your eyes and through your nose, take a long, slow, deep breath in and watch that breath. And when it gets down to your belly, hold it there and keep watching it, keep observing it, keep witnessing it. And now release it. Watch it as it moves up your chest, through your throat, out through your nose or mouth. Keep exhaling, keep witnessing, keep observing your breath as it dissipates into the ether. Keep watching it. And now breathe normally and open your eyes. And that was 16 seconds. And if you were playing along, I'm hoping everybody was playing along. I know, Heather, you were playing along. But if you were playing along, you are not in the past. And you are not in the future. If you were playing along, you were fully present for those 16 seconds. And if you were playing along, you weren't thinking about that thing that I just asked you to think about. And I didn't say, hey, stop thinking about that thing now and close your eyes. I just said, close your eyes and watch your breath. So in those 16 seconds, we learned two things. One, we can direct our attention to anything or anywhere that we want in a millisecond. So if we're hanging in depression, if we're hanging in sadness, if we're hanging in a grievance, we can instantly shift that to something else. So that's number one. And that's referred to as the object of our attention, which is a key to meditation. We can just have any object of our attention, such as watching our breath or repeating something in our head. Then that's the object of attention that holds our attention. At least for 16 seconds, it held your attention. But we also learned that, we just introduced a pattern interrupt into whatever was flowing in and to whatever was flowing out. And so we can't control what comes into us. We have no control over what the world will deliver to us on a millisecond by millisecond basis. But we can definitely determine how we interpret it, how we ingest it, how we translate it, and then what we do with it. That's the stuff that's in our control. So there's a space between stimulus and response. We are that space. And in that space, we get to choose. And that is probably one of the most powerful aspects. And if you want to do 16 seconds 4 times, that's just a minute. Do it 20 times, that's 5 minutes. So you can introduce a break in the action. Give your brain the opportunity take a breath. I don't recommend that you do it while you're driving with your eyes closed, but you can certainly do it while you're stuck in traffic and have it do it with your eyes open. You can do it while you're sitting at the dinner table with people or while you're hanging out with people. No one's going to say, hey, wait a second, are you doing that 16-second thing? Even if they are, you can say, yes, I was attempting to introduce a pattern interrupt into this moment so I could show up as my better version in the next moment. And so this tool, just as easy as 16 seconds, can transform your life. After I taught those Marines, one time they said, could you come back the next day and guide us through that again? And I was like, it was 16 seconds. It took me a half hour just to get through security clearance to get into this military base. They said, please come back for the week. So every day I drove 20 minutes and went through security for 20 minutes and to lead a 16-second guided meditation. They said, would you come back next week? And I said, yes, but we have to add a minute. So the next week I came back and we did a minute, 16 seconds every day. And then the next week, 2 minutes, 16 seconds. And then the next week, 3 minutes, 16 seconds. We did that for 25 weeks. And these guys, a few years later, they're all still meditating. And they've taught it to every single person that they know. And so simply by going incrementally, slowly, bean by bean, the bag gets full, knowing that longer term, yeah, that 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes in the afternoon, those are aspirational. But realistically, let me just weave some of this into me so that I'm not triggered by my needs not being met. Because guess what? They're not gonna get met at times. In fact, we need to take the proactive step of trying to meet them ourselves. So there's a certain teaching, I like to call it the 3 gifts, and it helps meet some of these needs of attention, affection, appreciation, and acceptance. I would say, well, if I just gazed into your eyes and said, you're beautiful, you're doing a great job, and I love you. Just those words alone, even said to you by a stranger, obviously they can't be said to you by your professor or by anyone in power or by your boss, but they certainly can be said by you to yourself. So I say, record those, you're beautiful, you're doing a great job, and I love you. Record that on your phone. And then throughout the course of the day, just play that. And you'll start to realize, well, I wasn't getting my needs met by anybody else. When's the last time someone said, you're beautiful, or you're doing a great job, or I love you? We're starving for that. So why not deliver it to ourselves? It's just as good. We feel the same way. And so that's one way for us to realize that we are searching, especially if you're in a doctoral program, you are searching for acknowledgement on a consistent basis, perhaps even addicted to it. Sometimes it's not coming, and that's only going to bring you down. So how about create the tool that helps you care a little bit less when it comes or how it comes? The source of all kindness is self-kindness. The source of all forgiveness is self-forgiveness. And the source of all compassion is self-compassion. So we need to start with just a little bit of self-love, and something like that so easily can help us meet our needs. So we'll walk through the world just with a little greater ease.
I love that you brought it back to the self-compassion, because actually in episode 3, where I talk about the superpower of self-care and how it's a way to unleash your genius, which is exactly what you need when you're in a doctoral program, some of this resistance is coming from a lack of self-love. Recording on your phone your own voice saying those things is profound. I've done it. Someone else challenged me to do that years ago, and it actually gave me the motivation then to extend my meditation practice. I found that I was worth sitting there for 10 minutes and then 15 minutes and then 20 minutes, that it was an investment in me and my better self.
Right. We think so logically that if I work out on a daily basis, my body will be in better physical shape and I will show up because I'm worthy of being in that, I'm worthy of eating nourishing foods. I'm worthy of feeling good. But yet when it comes to meditation, we would not be like, oh, I don't have 5 minutes. Really? Oprah meditates for 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes in the afternoon. Richard Branson does also. Um, you know, if they've got 20 minutes, these are fairly busy people. If they've got 20 minutes in the morning and the afternoon, certainly you have 15 seconds or 5 minutes to just sit. Because the problem is, certainly, if you're in a doctoral program, you've already crushed it in high school. You've crushed it in your undergraduates. You've crushed it in your graduates. So like we know you're a high achiever. And so the thing that got you to this point probably was focus and effort. But we need to pull back the bow here so we can launch into the next wave of our lives, so we can make better decisions. Because the last thing you want is at the end of your doctoral program to say, what's next? Another doctorate? You want to be able to integrate it all and then make that contribution to the world and add value to the lives of others and to add value to our own lives. And we can only do that coming from a place of clarity. And meditation is that. I know you said, that compassion is the superpower, but I would say meditation is the superpower too, because, suddenly we realize we're mutants like X-Men. We have all these secret superpowers resting inside of us, but if we don't activate them or actualize them, it doesn't really matter. And I think that if we could say, yeah, I'm worthy of, I'm entitled to 5 minutes of stillness and silence so I can make a better decision on the other side of that. We don't have a mentor lying around here. We don't have a guide to tell us that's a good move. You should do that. That makes more sense. But we have our inner guide. If we can connect to that and just slow things down a little bit, because I believe when we can essentially get to that space, I'll throw in just a little bit of Sanskrit here. The ancient sage Patanjali, who wrote the Yoga Sutras about 2,000 years ago, the second sutra in there is Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha, which says oneness. That's what yoga is, oneness. Oneness is the progressive quieting of the fluctuations of the mind. And I don't know another tool that exists out there that we can deploy on a daily basis that can deliver that progressive quieting of the fluctuations of the mind. We could spend some time in nature, and that would be great, and that would solve it for then. We could go out running, but suddenly we'd be like perhaps swirling thoughts. We could wash and dry the dishes very, very mindfully. But if we can show up every single day, just a little bit, and introduce that pattern interrupt, introduce that break in the action, everything in our lives will shift. And so I would say, you're worthy of it. You're worth it. Your best decision is demanding it, is resting on whether you come from a reactive place or a responsive place. Will we be flowing through the world more reflectively or reflexively? More mindfully or more mindlessly? Thoughtfully or thoughtlessly? Unconditioned or conditioned? It's a choice. And this simple little tool helps it, and no equipment necessary. Although I do recommend that you listen to my guided meditations, which are pretty much on every platform anywhere, plus, on my website. But you have your breath right here. So you don't have to suddenly plug in or catch a signal or do anything. You can just, wherever you are, just stop, breathe for a little bit, and then step into that next moment.
It's accessible, it's free. You keep coming back to this point of clarity. And I've argued that a simple breath practice can actually expand time, because when you have clarity, you're not spending time reacting. You're not spending time making decisions that don't serve you. So you gave examples of highly professional, successful, very busy people who do this. So my challenge to all my listeners is give it a shot. Let your experience speak for you. And davidji has been so generous. I'm going to have a link in the show notes to a 10-day meditation series. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. There's a law that no one talks about. It's the law of spaced repetition. We can just show up and do something, even if it's just for 10 minutes. And then the next day, show up again, do it just for 10 minutes and do that over a 10-day period. And there's been so many different conversations. Does 21 days create a habit? Does 40 days create a habit? What creates a habit? It starts with the first step. So I say, try this thing for 10 days. It's free. There's no barrier to entry. We know you're having stress. If you're human, you're having stress. We know that we're experiencing a whole host of our needs not being met on a consistent basis. So why not do something that can allow you really, really effortlessly to become the calm amidst the chaos, to become the stillness inside the storm? I'll just ask you right now, are you going to hold your breath for the next 6 months till this thing perhaps drifts away? Or are we going to learn how to breathe? And so I would rather learn how to breathe and then just coast through it, glide through it with grace and ease, than be holding my breath. Oh, it's going another 6 months. Okay, I'll hold my breath another 6 months. We already did that in 2020. And so why not take this opportunity to really give yourself the gift of the present moment?
And with that gift of the present moment, you get those bonuses, just to wrap back around to the beginning of our conversation, of a tiny amygdala, right? What would the world look like if we all had a teeny tiny amygdala and
Right.
a bigger hippocampus?
I have a t-shirt that says shrink your amygdala. Although no one knows what I'm talking about when I wear that shirt. On the back, it says, ask me how. So not a lot of people have approached me and said, I'm interested in that amygdala shrinkage you were talking about. But we know, scientifically proven, now we know that when we meditate, we really activate and expand our prefrontal cortex, which is involved in executive decision making, which is involved in so much of our choice making and so many of the different aspects of making better decisions in our life. So why do we not do that? I get it. If I've got 5 free minutes, and I've just been working and working and working, the last thing I want to do is suddenly have to commit myself to something else, especially something that I've been trained and it's been reinforced and I've been brainwashed. But sitting for 5 minutes with my eyes closed is someone who's not a high achiever. And it's like, no, this is clear evidence that I'm a loser. But we know, and I've written a few books, so I understand the concept of deadlines as well. Taking those just 5 minutes to just be with yourself will actually help you meet deadlines more accurately, because there actually will start to be just a little bit more space inside of you. I'm at the point right now, I've been meditating consistently every single day for about 18 years. And the world comes at me sort of kind of in slow motion. So doesn't mean things don't blow up and bad news isn't delivered to me, and classic disappointments and frustrations externally, but they're coming at me in slow motion. So I'm not really getting hit in the head by a 2x4 in every moment. And that just allows me just a little more thoughtfulness for how I would like to respond. I don't get swirled up in drama, which I, which I was swirled up in, for a solid, my whole childhood. And I believe that you won't either. This will be the special tool that will start to impact you in so many different ways. And, people say, well, what's the real benefit? If there could be like one benefit, what does meditation do? And I believe, what are we trying to do? We're simply cultivating our ability to witness. That's it. Witness ourselves, witness our emotions, witness our purpose in life, witness our direction, witness the world outside of us, witness other people's emotions. They call that emotional intelligence. There's so many benefits to this cultivation of witnessing. And I think we will really elevate our lives in so many different ways. Certainly in the physical realm, the emotional realm, the relationship realm. And once that stuff starts leveling up, everything else really falls into place. So if you're feeling overwhelmed and you're looking for clarity, meditation. If you're feeling disconnected and you're looking for more community, meditation. If you're impatient and you're finishing other people's sentences, meditation. If you're getting so annoyed by somebody else's behavior and it's impacting the way you live your life, meditation. So just 16 seconds here. Like I said, do it 20 times. It's just 5 minutes. It will transform and change your life. And I would say, check out this 10-day free series. At this point, I think like 600,000 people have just taken this series that I put out. And I get so many emails from people. I get it. It's all anecdotal. But so many people say, oh my God, I was struggling in my relationship. Oh my God, I was in such deep, dark depression. Oh my God, I was feeling so overwhelmed. I did this thing and now I have a greater sense of stability. And I'm meeting my needs at a higher level. So I can't recommend it, more heartily.
And again, you can be your own sample size of one, collect your own data. And, davidji, I had been meditating for about 7 years. And when COVID hit, there was a time there where I found I had skipped a few days and I wasn't doing guided meditations. Synchronicity, which I love, would have it that you popped up on Spotify. And what got me was not just the sound of your voice, which is just truly amazing. I'm sure everyone is loving listening to this podcast and will listen to it over and over again. But I loved that you gave me permission to feather my nest and be comfortable, right? So if you're listening out there and you think meditation is going to be in this lotus pose and it's going to be uncomfortable, I'm going to link in the show notes, not just to this 10-day meditation series, but some of my favorite meditations of yours. And you've got some short ones. You've got some 7-minute ones for people who are still struggling with this concept of time, and some longer ones for those adventurous people who want to kind of quantum leap their transformation. And I'll have the links to your books as well. So davidji, I just want to thank you again for joining us from the sweet spot in the universe and inviting us into the gap today.
My pleasure, truly my pleasure. And, in closing, I'll just share that, we transform the world by transforming ourselves. And so if there's something out there that you want to shift, make the shift in here. And then suddenly you'll experience the power of your ripple. And so I say, just give it a shot. Why not? What do you have to lose? 16 seconds? We've wasted more time than that on other frivolous things. So why not try something that's evidence-based, scientifically proven, and will definitely, worst case scenario, you'll just be a little calmer. That the worst that ever happened. And Lord knows, we could use a little calmness right now.
Yeah, whether you're a doctoral student, really, if you're in a human body right now, a little more calmness would be a good thing. So check it out. Thanks again so much.
Thank you.
If you're enjoying the Happy Doc Student podcast, could I ask you a big favor? Would you be willing to rate, review, and subscribe? It would help me get noticed by more people like you, people who know there is a better way to navigate the doctoral process. The Happy Doc Student podcast is brought to you by expandyourhappy.com, and you can learn more there.